Welcome to Relationship Talk, the podcast where we have real conversations about love, well-being, dating, and relationships. In today's episode, I had a dynamic conversation about attachment styles with Clare Cui, who is a relationship coach who helps high-achieving women break free from overthinking and self-doubt to build deeper, more secure connections. Using a unique mind, body, spirit approach, Claire empowers her clients to trust themselves, communicate authentically, and create the love and confidence they deserve. With her blend of personal experience and commitment to keeping it real while you heal, with her guidance, Claire is committed to helping women to build self-trust in relationships, both with themselves and their partners. You can find out more about Claire's heart-opening work in the show notes. During this conversation, Claire shares what attachment styles are, how they typically show up in romantic relationships, and she debunks some of the common myths around them. She makes it clear that you are not your insecure attachment style diagnosis and why that distinction is so important. Claire also reveals the one powerful thing you can use to tell the difference between your intuition and attachment triggered fear, especially in the early stages of dating or relationships. She answers the question so many people have: can two people with insecure attachment styles build a secure relationship together? She breaks it down beautifully. And so much more. You are about to get the whole RLT, aka Relationship Talk, so you're going to want to watch the entire episode. I hope that you will find this conversation as insightful as I did. And remember to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell. I'm Tarisha Young, your international wellness and relationship coach. Enjoy, take notes, and get ready to apply all key messages you take away today. Hello, Claire. How are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so great and even better now that we're together. We can chat. I'm so excited.
Me too, Claire. And I'm just so grateful for you to come onto the show and actually talk about a topic that I'm sure so many people have heard about, maybe done some research about, and maybe have even diagnosed themselves. We are going to be talking all things attachment styles. So I'm sure people's ears have started to perk up here. But before we actually delve deep into the topic, I would love for you to share, Claire, a bit about your journey and what led you to becoming a relationship coach.
I love that question, and it's actually something I've been a coach since I was out of uni. I think it's like what you call in the UK
Yeah.
university. And I have always been the person I've never had a regular 9 to 5. And my very first gig out of graduating was being a personal trainer. And so in many ways, I'm used to having people do hard things like
Mm,
crunches or squats, things that they don't really want to do. And that evolution led me to being a sales coach. I was really struggling with building my fitness business. So I hired a business coach. And from there, I said, wow, I am really good at this. And I got hired at a big company. And the big shift for me that made me go into relationship coaching specifically was I was really happy. Well, yeah, happy until the big change came around at my career and my job where I was working with hundreds of women that were building their businesses. And the company that I was working with was really growing. Eight to nine figures was definitely where we were at. And they offered me a full-time position, 9 to 5. And I don't know if that resonates with you. You tilted your head. That to
mm,
me, a little part of my soul just shriveled at that opportunity. And they were offering just like the golden handcuffs, like a lot of money, more bonuses. And I had always said up until that point that if I were in another world, I'd be a relationship coach. And it just really was a kick in my butt to shift and transition and go full time into my business. And I haven't looked back. I haven't regretted it. And it's been such a fulfilling place for me to be. I really actually feel that this is what I'm meant to do here on this planet. And so being a coach is not an unfamiliar thing to me, to helping women with their leadership, with their communication, which is so critical in romantic relationship. So that's how I kind of ended up here. But and of course I have my own personal history with my partner that led me to this specific type of relationship coaching.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that because there have been a couple of pivots for you in your journey in order for you to actually get to the point where you were almost handcuffed into something and you said no. You said
I said
absolutely.
no.
You said no. What a very, very empowering journey to actually stand in your truth. It's often some sort of catalyst, like what you said there, that makes us have a wake up call and to say, can I see myself doing this forever, potentially for a very long time? So you've spoken about how you have pivoted into relationships. Now, because we're going to be talking about attachment styles, so to speak, to set the stage for people who don't know or for people who would like to have a little bit of a recap, can you explain what attachment styles are and how they typically show up for people in romantic relationships?
Yeah. So here's, I'll give you also some more insight on why I specifically chose to talk about attachment styles, and
Mm,
specifically the women that I work with are high achievers, high performers that have anxious attachment. And to me, those pretty much go hand in hand.
mm,
I find that the more that they're able to have letters behind their name, like they got PhDs or MDs, or they're climbing the corporate ladder, that this is often, if they do have an expression of an attachment style, it's almost like the tools that created your high achieving and you're making lots of money. It also is this part where you're also struggling with this anxiety because a lot of the mechanisms that create that are the same. So
okay.
how I really see attachment styles, and I'll just actually speak from how I found out about my attachment style, which was I had a horrible breakup. I mean, it's one of those breakups where you, I feel like at a certain point, all women have had this, and not all women, I can't say that, but a good majority have experienced like the heart-wrenching breakup. And I would call it like a bit of an awakening. It
Mm,
awakened something inside of me that I needed to be healed, truthfully. And found out that, oh my gosh, I have anxious attachment. I read there's a like a the Bible of this is the attachment. I shouldn't say Bible, but it's definitely like a book that most people read around it. And I just was reading that book and like that is me, that is me, that is me. That is all the anxiously attached stuff was me. And from the standpoint of getting diagnosed, it was really, really helpful for me to be able to, okay, I am this way. But what I think is the most damaging and can be really prohibitive for people to actually heal is that we become the diagnosis. We start to identify and we start to make our personality that diagnosis. So
mm,
I found out I was anxiously attached. And so let's just kind of define that.
yeah.
That is typically somebody who has a lot of nervous, a lot of anxious energy, hence anxious attachment. They tend to overthink, they tend to overanalyze, they tend to get really scared or freaked out when there's perceived distance, whether that's physical or emotional. They can be really on high alert. They're kind of watching behavior, subtle behavior. They're hyper vigilant. That's the other way to describe that. They're really, and for my particular clients, they're usually waiting for the other shoe to drop. And this is the other added layer for the people that I really love working with is that their partner's actually pretty good. They're by all accounts doing the things that they should be doing in a normal standard secure relationship, but something's falling short. So that is how I would define anxious. And avoidant is, I would say, the nemesis, right? This is like the I hate to say this, but this it's got a lot of negative connotation out there on the internet. But avoidants tend to be the opposite. They need to withdraw. They need space. They need to recoup. they get very overwhelmed with a lot of feelings. So they tend to be slower with their reactions. Anxious people tend to overreact. So you can kind of see that there is this whole dynamic. And to me, and then the ideal place is to be secure. Now, because this is how we were typically raised and our how we attach to our caregivers, mother, father, whoever that was raising us, that has a huge impact. And if everything's fine and dandy and there's no generational trauma, there's no, mom and dad are good and they're stable, then we have secure attachment. And I just want to say that anxious and avoidant, those are the insecure attachments. And also, one little layer here is now, 15, 20 years ago, this was like not a thing. Like you had three. You had salt, pepper, and ketchup, right? Like you had these two different things, three different things. And now they're finding that there's different, and I'll just like little bunny ears, like there are different variations. And what I think is interesting about that, there's dismissive avoidant, there's all these different kind of hodgepodge mix and match. To me, what was really helpful for me with understanding attachment styles and really how I teach it is that there's actually core things going on. It doesn't really matter what the packaging is
Mm.
inside the package, and how we relate to our partner, how we relate to ourselves, is actually what matters. And to me, that's kind of like the piece that makes the differentiator between people that are really willing, able, and want to heal, and the people that want to just live by their diagnosis. Like, I'm anxiously attached. Guess that's just how I am. I would call that fixed mindset. We don't really want to change.
Okay. So then if you are saying that you can become the diagnosis, so for example, so that speaks to the idea that attachment styles aren't fixed, that they can actually be changed.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, we're human.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're on the journey. At least I am fully committed to growing and evolving and learning, and you are too. That's why we're here together.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely, we can absolutely move. And what I refer to my husband and I is I was anxiously attached, he was avoidant, and we now have an earned secure relationship. And that doesn't mean that we don't fight, because that's just like that's not normal to not have conflict. Conflict is healthy and necessary. How you handle conflict, how you handle your differences, how you work through them is what creates that earned secure attachment. Because I'm sure there are people out there that are throwing their hands up, well, guess I'm not secure, and they just, gripe and moan about it. But really, you can actively change your how you attach for sure.
Amazing. So you have described the dynamics between yourself and your husband, anxious, avoidant, two insecure attachment styles there. So you have managed to create a secure relationship. Am I correct in saying that? What's
Oh,
that journey?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So what did that journey look like for you? And how can that look like for other people who might be listening?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was horrible. The beginning of the journey was really hard, and it was
Yeah.
really what I actually just deeply believe on a soul level is that and we've maybe have heard this jargon out there that we're all mirrors, like, we attract our mirror. And what's ironic about that is that that's pretty much what we are referring to. I'm a yogi in namaste culture, right? Namaste consciousness, where the light in me is the light in you. The divine in me sees the divine in you. That there's this reciprocity, right? There's this reflection that's happening. And so for me, when we were in this really tumultuous time where we had a track, we have a soul contract. Like, this is something that we were figuring out together.
Mm.
And it got really clear to me when we had one of the big arguments initially. I'd say we were about a year in, and my husband was a runner. Like, if there
Okay.
was conflict, and he like literally run, like he would actually just get a run, go away. Where if there was heightened emotion and that we were definitely not able, willing, well, we were willing, we did not have the tools to manage our conflict.
Okay.
So that's typically where the anxious and avoidant triggers happen when there's misunderstandings, there's miscommunication, and that happens in a relationship, right? So the big shift was we had this big argument, and something inside me said it was pretty clear. I don't want to say voice of God, but something similar to
Mm.
that, where I just kind of realized that I think hi, I'm the drama. I have a part to play here.
Mm.
Something inside me is calling this in, and I'm either going to figure it out with this person or I'm going to just keep repeating this pattern because that's what I had been doing. I
Yeah.
had been in my mind, even after I had read this book, I was like, I'm just going to find my strategy was
Mm.
I'm going to find somebody who's secure
Yeah.
because I'm anxiously attached. If I find somebody that's good, if I find
Mm.
a good guy, a secure guy that isn't messed up like I am, they'll just take care of me.
Mm.
They'll take care of all of it. And guess what I did?
Mm.
Just take a while. Guess what happened with the men that I did find that were secure?
Oh gosh. Did they actually step in
Oh
with both?
yeah, they
Yeah.
stepped in big time, but I decided to push the let it burn button. That's what happens because if we deep down, if we are kind of wired for chaos,
Mm.
we're wired for we have deep subconscious feelings and thoughts that support a false reality that we're not worthy, that we're not good enough, then it doesn't really matter who the reflection is. Sometimes we'll manifest a reflection that verifies your belief system,
Yeah.
which I did. I created a partnership, just the big breakup, the big relationship that blew up in my face. I manifested that. I'm trying to be delicate saying that word, but because I had not healed, we attract people at the level of our healing. So at my most unhealed state, guess what I attracted? Somebody that verified the deep-seated beliefs that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't good enough.
Mm.
So yeah, I know, a nice deep breath to that, right? I'm sure we've all experienced that. But when I would my strategy before when I was dating, I'll find a secure person that'll take care of me,
Yeah.
that'll make it better. But because my underlying
Yeah.
subconscious wasn't awakened or aware or working on these deeper beliefs, these deeper patterns,
Mm.
I would just reject and blow up a bunch of good secure relationships because I hadn't done the work, which is why I'm so adamant about if you really want to have a healthy, secure relationship, it's not about finding somebody that's going to make it better. That is outsourcing your happiness.
Mm.
I think that's a very dangerous gamble.
Yeah.
When we are actually in charge of our own happiness, we are the creators of our own reality. So I'm really committed to myself and my partner's committed to his journey and our journey together and everybody really what I hope is committed to their own journey and not trying to let their happiness be determined by an external factor because you can't control that.
Mm. So the journey of two insecure people, then that sounds like it could be very much individual work and then coming together. Is that how that
Yeah,
looks?
absolutely. I mean, so here's what I also find with this is a common question that my clients when they first start working with me is, and they find out through our work together that oh wow it does matter. So as you start to change yourself, as you start to do your own inner work, I'm a really big believer that a rising tide raises all ships.
Mm.
So for me, in my case, and it's so funny. We did a podcast together. It was not that the audio quality is horrible. So my apologies if somebody listens to that. But we had never spoken this out loud. And I was actually intentional with that because I felt like saying it somewhere on like just to have it on paper, have it on record would be important at some point.
Yeah.
But he voiced to me that he was really clear that I was changing. I was going to grow. And
Mm.
he could feel that from me. It was nothing that I ever said to him,
Okay.
but he could feel from me that I was really committed to my own growth. And I still am. That's who I am. And he basically said, "Oh,
Mm,
I better start really rising as well." And that's what we want. It's kind of like the people that struggle with vulnerability, and I was used to be in the past one of those people that, well, I'm only going to go if you go.
mm,
I'm only gonna go if you go. And what that the reality of that is that then we become transactional. Then it's like, you go first, I go first, and it's kind of a tit for tat. Versus when you are solely committed to your growth and your journey,
mm,
the people that are meant to be on that journey with you will go with you. And guess what? If they don't rise with you, they're gonna sail away anyway. And
mm.
because you're going forward on your own path, you're chartering your own course.
Yeah, that's such an energetic shift for
Yeah,
somebody to actually feel it without you categorically or directly saying to them, I'm changing, by the way. Have you noticed? It's like, I
right.
feel it. And that would have been just in your whole demeanor. There must have been some really even subtle nuances that were coming up that he thought,
Absolutely.
wow, there's something that needs to change in me too. I think when it comes to these things, it's very important for it to be self-motivated,
Yes.
rather than it actually being directed by your partner. It's like because you have more passion and you have more desire, I suppose, in order
Mhm.
to make a change. So for people who are listening and they may feel maybe fixed or stuck in either an attachment style that is anxious or avoidant, what's one practical first step that they could take in order to create more emotional safety? Because this is more about being like emotionally safe in your relationships, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because that's going to direct your behaviors. So, what first step could they take in order to create more emotional safety and connection in their relationship, either with themselves, that inner work, or with their partner if they're in a relationship?
Absolutely. What a great question. And I want to go back to what we just said around fixed and a powerful, I don't even remember what teacher where I heard this, so I can't really credit, but what we learn, we can unlearn.
Mm,
And that is just so true because attachment styles is not like, it's not necessarily genetic. This is definitely something that you learn through interacting and being conditioned in your family and with your caregivers. And this would be like, okay, we think about, let's just take I'm a fitness background, right? So
yeah,
conditioning, right?
yeah,
You got a big race coming up. Or you're a strength trainer. You got a big weightlifting meet, right? You need to get conditioned to get to that place. So that type of similar kind of conditioning, a lot of bicep curls, right? So if we think about the conditioning that it takes and in our formative years or even there's so much research too that supports that women and their babies, it's pre-verbal. We are,
mm,
and if you're a mom, if there's mom, you know that, like you can feel what your baby needs, and you can, it's intuitive, right?
mm,
So even on a pre-verbal level in utero, babies are so in tune with their mother's world, their caregiver's world, and then they come out and then there's dad maybe or maybe not, but there's caregivers, there's people in the family, there's siblings maybe, and we start getting those repetitions, those bicep curls, training for the marathon at a very young age, pre-verbal. So that I really have a lot of compassion for people that are your age, my age. I'm 42. So it's like I can't change. I'm like, well, if you think that, then certainly that's going to be what you get, right? If you
mm,
think that you're not going to change or that you can't change, then what you feed or what you focus on grows.
yeah,
Period. So if that is your mindset, if that's your perspective, this is like saying this is the same thing as how many red Hondas are we going to see? How many red cars? Like if you think that, it's going to pop up all over the place.
yeah,
So I'd say the first step, if they, because you framed it with if I think I can't change, then that's the issue. The
yeah,
issue is thinking that you can't change.
mm-hmm,
Because if you then by saying that, then you are subscribing to that. You're putting energy towards that. And I'm just gonna say this, and it just I had a little gut kick here around. It's a really good excuse. It's a really good excuse. I know. I could feel that you felt that gut kick too. It's
yeah,
a great excuse to not change because the reality is change is hard.
yes,
Conditioning, you want to condition for a marathon? Yeah, those 6, 7, 8, 10 mile runs are boring.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And as I said before, it's like creating the desire and the why. the why. I know I always say your why will make you fly. So you need to
Hmm.
be, so once you identify, okay, there could be a limiting belief, a fixed belief that I have that I'm unable to change. I'm stuck. I'm an avoidant. I am. We have to be very careful about the words we use when we say I am too. I am an avoidant or I am anxious. Okay.
Right.
So in order to reframe it, so I'm not quite sure whether you are subscribed to affirmations, Claire. Would
Oh,
you? Yeah.
100%. Of
Okay.
course.
So it feels like creating an affirmation behind what else could be true in terms
Hmm.
of let's say I am secure. Okay. You might not necessarily believe that, but you're going to have to get lots of evidence and lots of receipts, so to speak, in
Right.
order to show where you are a secure person. And it's likely that you're going to have to look outside of your current situation to go back in time to think about all of those times when you have been secure, or had secure experiences in order to collect those receipts. And then going forward is to look for evidence in terms of actually building up that mindset that I am secure, or I have a secure attachment styles. Would you say similar to that?
100%. I mean, what we're talking about with affirmations in my world are affirming a reality that may not be here yet. And it may not, and it may be here in 5 seconds, it may be here in 10 minutes, maybe in 10 days, 10 years, but it's a reality.
Mm,
And so one thing that you were just mentioning that really stood out to me is if you because I could imagine, I was just thinking as you were saying and feeling into the person that's like, well, I don't feel secure. The
yes.
affirmation feels false, right?
Mhm.
So it's even being, I'm really big on language.
Yes.
And I really should have maybe thought about this in when I was in uni around studying linguistics more because I'm really into language. But how we use language is how we identify our world,
Mhm.
right? How we say things is how, and the words that we choose indicate our world and
Yeah.
how we see the world, how we interface the world, how we interact with the world. So if saying I am secure feels like that
Mhm.
is a what would be the fun UK way of describing that? I want to say like 10 leagues away, but that just sounds like a
No,
book.
exactly. But it's okay. I've got a global audience, so it will resonate with
Okay.
somebody out there.
Gonna we're
So,
gonna say it seems leagues away. Okay.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
so I feel
Miles
secure
away. We can
seems
always say
very
miles
far
away.
away.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Then we would just need what I would call a lily pad. Right. So if you're a little frog or you're a little tadpole and you're trying to get to the other side of the pond and like their world is small, right? So that 10 meters feels so
Mm.
far out there. But to get to that other side of the pond, maybe you do need a lily pad. So, a great lily pad in the direction of I am secure could be I'm working on being secure.
Yes.
I'm in process of being secure. I'm learning.
Mm.
Any you pick any verb
Yeah.
to allow yourself to, oh, it's true, I am, because then your body, and I'm even feeling it for myself in this moment. If I'm not at the place that I want to be, then choosing your word and how you describe that is important. And the other way that I'm just realizing is important to say around, like, so if you're choosing language, I'm working on being secure, I'm learning, I'm in process. If you pay attention, those are verbs, those are action,
Mhm.
right? Because I at least will admit for myself, it didn't happen because I crossed my fingers and I laid in bed and I said, I just want to be secure. No, no, we put the work into having a secure relationship. That it takes work. It's just like,
Yeah.
having, if you don't have a natural Beyonce or J Lo booty, you're gonna have to do some squats.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just gonna be true.
Mm. I love the way how you have softened that as well with the lily pad because it's actually more witnessing the journey rather than the destination. Because when you say, for example, I am secure, it's like you've got there. And for
Yeah,
some people, not going to be feeling true to them.
right.
So it's a case of when you soften it with the verb and then it's actually honors and gives a lot more, I guess, compassion to the journey as well. So the first step is to really, like you said, you acknowledge what the issue might be. It might be I think that I'm fixed in certain attachment styles, then it's looking into that to say, so how can I unlearn or relearn,
Right.
learn something new, which I think
Right.
is so empowering. One thing you did mention before was about intuition. When you were talking about the baby and the mother and the
Hmm.
intuitive feels that we get. And I completely understand that. My daughter, she's 8 years old and she's currently nonverbal. So a lot of our communication is not around language. Okay, she understands, I can talk, but how she communicates with me is not through words. So I understand what that can feel like in terms of just really feeling into your intuition. So a lot of people will find that their attachment styles will start to show up more predominantly in the dating stage when you're just getting to know and meet somebody. So, how can somebody distinguish between intuition and an attachment triggered um, fear, perhaps, that they're having in the very early stages of getting to know somebody?
Absolutely. I love this question. It's actually a big in my community. It's a we do a whole month on this specific topic,
Ooh,
and I want to, yeah, it's because it's actually, well, I'm sure you know this. A lot of us are not, especially for high achievers, high
yeah,
performers, that intuitiveness is actually conditioned out of us.
yes.
Right. So I have a couple clients who are doctors. And so I joke with them around, oh, could you take a moment to be in your feels during your residency? Could you just take a moment to like listen to your body and have a snack and like have a nap and like it's just a huge ha ha ha.
Yeah.
No, of course not. And if that's just like that's one if you are an entrepreneur, like right? There's this whole I cringe saying this, but there's a former mentality that really reflected our global mindset around white supremacy and misogyny, which is and capitalism, that's everything
Mhm.
that drives that, is you have to work,
Yes.
right? You have to be productive, you have to produce. That's the big thing around capitalistic thinking. And it also our systems impact our personal choices, right?
Mm.
So if you say to yourself, I gotta rise and grind, no sleep for the weary, I mean that's slave talk. That's actually that's what they said,
Yeah.
right? So so it is like this deeper conditioning and learning to trust your intuition. There's um, a definite understanding that you can reawaken when you're in the trance of society, that you got to push, you got to grind, you got to do all these things. that that works maybe in a current system, but it's not going to work in a relationship. It's not. It's just, it's not, because that's not how the nature of true relationship and love and healthy communication is based on. It's based on vulnerability. It's based on the intuition. It's based on listening to your gut, and that a lot of times gets shut off because of how we've been conditioned to operate. So, I went off the wheels on that, but I'm really big because especially I'll just speak from a woman of color, and you're also a woman of
Yes.
color too.
Yeah.
It's really important when we don't really see how systemically we are impacted by how we show up in a relationship.
Yeah.
So the big question, going to your question, and like and giving you an answer,
No, I love it.
the reality of what I see, this is like a really quick way of being able to see it. And the irony is that I'm saying quick, is that our anxiety definitely feeds off of urgency.
Mhm.
It feeds off, the fear is definitely is a contractor, it's a constrictor, so it shortens time. It makes things, we feel like we have to get back to somebody right away. Oh, an email came in, I got to respond right away, right? So a lot of times, if you are trying to distinguish your fear from your intuition, well, first of all, if you're even in that realm, you are probably at that point listening already to your anxiety.
Yeah.
But I would say that a good indicator is that things feel urgent. Like I need to just word vomit all my feelings right now. I can't hold it in. Or I need him to answer my text back right away.
Mhm.
When are we going to move to the next level? right? Whether that are we going to start dating? Are we going to be official? Like a lot of times anxiety is mask it can masquerade as or kind of both. Like urgency is anxiety in disguise. So,
Wow, that's really good actually. Because you think it's pacing, not racing, really. It's like rather than actually just racing ahead and making everything so urgent, it's like slowing things down.
right.
Particularly when you were talking about that conversation with the doctor, it's like you just have a moment of pause, like just stop and like, what is rest? So
Right.
actually, would you say like they're talking about rest? Would you say that that is a key feature for people who perhaps are in these insecure attachment styles is to have moments of pause, reflection? Now, how can they take that time to actually rest? I'm going to use the word rest.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, we've kind of touched on it that in a couple of ways. And I think it's let me just liken this to I'm also going to use a gardening analogy, but I don't know anything about gardening. My mom is a great gardener. She could like spit and like a rose could come up, but I
I need your mum.
yeah, no, seriously, she's so great. And then like the joke in my household is that I mean, I can kill things fast, like really fast. I've got a black thumb. So yeah, I would say that gosh, if say we have a sprout, okay, like it's springtime here in Colorado, so there's a sprout, and a lot of times, if you are anxious or you're hovering over it, like, would you say it's good or bad advice to poke the sprout, to
No, you just
poke and move?
no, just let it do its thing, huh?
Right. The more could you overwater it?
Oh, yes, you can. You could
Right.
even try to dig it up to make sure that it's still good.
So, I mean, you can see that, like, and I'm not a gardener, but
Neither
I
am
think
I.
I know that, right? Like, I think I know, just like let it grow, like, let it kind of do its thing. And we could see that that's the same kind of mentality when it comes to, oh, I need to do more. And again, this is like the proclivity of somebody who is more on the high achiever. They've done a lot of things. They've gotten accolades, they've achieved a lot. And so that it's again like if you are used to doing bicep curls and you go to the gym and they're like bicep curls again and like yeah, because that's the way my muscles have been trained. I've been conditioned to do and to overfunction and to overgive a lot of times.
Yeah. So when you're talking there, and I was actually just really feeling into what you were saying, and it just reminds me of what you're very unique mind body. You have a mind body spirit approach, don't
Hmm.
you,
I
Claire?
do, yeah.
Which is a very. Can you share more about that and how that might even show up for people who have insecure attachment styles? How does that look?
Oh gosh, I love that you asked that question. Like, and also your intuition is so spot on because of you've kind of been, I've been weaving that in, and it's like unconscious, but your intuition is just
I'm
spot on,
picking
which I
up on
love.
it. I'm feeling this.
Yeah,
I'm getting the
yeah,
vibes.
you're getting the vibes, right? And so yeah, definitely, I'm very much into a holistic approach, body,
Yeah.
mind, and spirit. And this is what I find is also so frustrating for people who a lot of women that come to me, they've done therapy. They've
Mm,
done years of therapy and they've done all kinds of therapy. And by the way, this is like not a knock on therapy. Like if
mhm.
somebody like comes into my application process,
Yes.
it's why I talk to them because I really need to feel maybe this is not the best fit. Maybe therapy or counseling is the pathway to go and to
Mhm,
continue to go on. But a lot of times, the women that come to me, they've got a long track record of therapy. They are tired of feeling like it's a vent session and they just are feeling at a wit's end, right? They're at the point where maybe they're pushing a good person away. And the reason part of that is those particular women fall through the cracks is that they know what to say. They know exactly what to say in therapy. They might even know their diagnosis better than anybody else does.
mhm.
They can kind of run circles around their therapist, and the therapist's like, "You're so self-aware," and it's like, those women tend to fall through the cracks, which is why the holistic approach
Mm.
is so important. Let me just break those down briefly. The
Yeah,
first
sure.
part is your body. Okay,
Mm.
so again, the physicality. We may have heard of regulating your nervous system, a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah.
So on a body level, Okay, on a body level, if your body perceives that a bear is coming,
Mm.
right, and it's feeling the stress, whether that's an actual bear or they didn't text you back,
Okay.
it's first from the body approach of learning how to regulate your nervous system. And that is, I'll say this, and I'm not the first time that I will say this, but it's kind of boring. But really, and it's actually a good sign. If you feel like it's the healing process is boring, you're actually you keep going. Like that is exactly where you want to be.
Yeah.
So it's learning on a body level, which is just it's a third of it. How can you calm your body?
Yeah.
Now, what I find is, and I'm sure that the listeners will probably agree to this, is that they might be able to take, and sadly, like some people can take pills to make them feel better, they'll able to self-medicate,
Mm.
but your body also informs your thoughts. So
Yes.
what I mean by that is, haven't you ever um f- gotten spooked, like you heard something or somebody knocked on the door and you felt scared?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you start thinking, did I lock the door?
Mm-hmm.
Is the gate open? Like you
Yeah.
start, so the feeling, it trickles into the thought,
Yeah.
right? Feel scared, think scary thoughts.
Yeah.
Or haven't you watched a scary movie and think, ooh, that thing is creepy in the closet. And then you go to bed and your heart's racing, you can't go to
Yeah.
sleep because your thought triggered the body reaction. Okay.
Yes.
So this is a very, very clean example of that your body informs your mind and your mind also informs your body.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's important because if you are used to well, I'll just say this: the women that think they know what's going on with their diagnosis of being anxiously attached, a lot of times it's very surface. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of connection to the sensations in their body, which is like more like somatic, a more somatic approach.
Mm.
And also, not only that, but when I say mind, it's also your subconscious mind. That is what's driving
Yeah.
your behavior, your actions, and your thoughts and your feelings. So
Mm.
really opening the box, opening the chest to what actually are the subconscious thoughts, the subconscious feelings that are driving the behavior. So we got body that
Yes.
informs mind, and mind informs body, and then how do we incorporate the spirit?
Yeah.
So for me, spirit is it's one of the most beautiful parts of this, which is connecting to, first of all, oneness, which you do through observational awareness. So if I am not flexing that muscle of
Yeah.
observational awareness, and your ability to observe is basically what monks and meditation practices have been doing for millennia. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
to to remove yourself from the thoughts that you're thinking. So it's one thing for somebody to not be texting you, right? That might be true and that might be a fact in what's happening. But if you are constantly in a litany of thoughts, and overthinking can really feel like that. It can feel like a fire hose and or a ride that you just can't get out of. And the lever, the wedge to stop that, and then over time as you start to build that muscle of observational awareness through different self-soothing techniques,
Mm.
you start to separate yourself from those overthinking thoughts. Instead of, oh, he didn't text back right away, instead of going down the spiral, observational awareness allows you to say, oh, that's so, I'm feeling a little weird about that. Huh. And but instead of thinking I feel weird and going down the spiral,
Yeah.
it actually keeps you out of that Alice in Wonderland fall.
Wow. I love that holistic approach. It's so empowering and it's so all encompassing when I actually am listening to what you're saying. So, with regards to the observational awareness, then, is it worth to write down what you are observing so that you can notice patterns?
100%. It's very, very helpful. So journaling is nothing new,
Hmm.
and it is definitely a big piece of it. And for different reasons, for different how do I want to say this? It has different uses for different recipes. I'm just thinking,
Okay.
like thinking food. But So, for example, I'm just thinking about what I taught last night in a training in my community. We're talking about communication.
Mm,
And one thing that an anxiously attached person will tend to do is over communicate. They will over explain. They'll word vomit. They'll just kind of say the same thing again and again. It's really hard to get to the heart of what they're trying to say to somebody. They're going through a lot of details and they're basically kind of saying a lot of fluff, but not enough meat. And journaling, for example, is a way of off-gassing some of that nervous energy, right?
sure.
Just allowing those thoughts to be on paper and instead of staying in your head, there's so much benefit. I mean, the research is just out there for like what happens when we allow our thoughts to be somewhere else.
Mm,
And also, yeah, if we are now, I'm not saying that if you're like, this is the system, right? So if you are in a state of dysregulation, journaling may not help, right? If you are highly dysregulated,
mm.
meaning your heart's racing, you
Yes.
are your cortisol levels are up, then yeah, journaling may not be in that moment the most productive. It might be, but again, this is also a lot of times I would call myself a trigger expert. Like this is like what I'm really good at with anxious triggers. And the reality is that this is like treating at the trigger is like we had a heart attack. I'm having a heart attack,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Like okay, like let's get you like let's get you in surgery right now.
Yeah.
And then nothing about their lifestyle changes. They're
Mm,
still smoking, they're still drinking, they're still up
yeah.
at night, you know, whatever. And then, right? So a lot of times that we think it's about the trigger and the reality is that it's how you live your life, which we
Mm,
talked about through affirmations, through
yes.
are you nourishing your body? Are you overperforming and overgiving at work, which is meaning that your stress levels are out the wall,
Mm,
right? Then
yeah.
of course you are going to get triggered. It's just even with a good person.
Yeah. So in that moment, and you have spoken about the connection between the mind and body and the dysregulation of the nervous system. So in that moment, I mean, I've heard it's said around so many places that the breath is the glue that connects the mind and the body. So is that the case? You bring it back to breath. You're a yogi. You've spoken about. So is it the breath work that can really help in that moment if we are feeling super anxious?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big fan of breath work, period. So breath work to me in any state is gonna be it's pretty magical when you can be in your breath, take a couple deep breaths. I mean, there's this adorable I'm on TikTok video of a little girl who is dysregulated and her mom's
Yeah.
holding her and she taught her to sniff the flowers
Yeah.
and then blow out the candles. And
Oh.
it was so adorable. And like the little girl didn't want to do that. I'm like, oh, I've been that little girl, like as
Yeah.
an adult. Like I don't want to do the breathing, the stupid breathing. And it
Mm,
was so amazing. Like her mom just stayed with it with her and like sniffing the flowers, blowing out the candle. And it was really fun to watch, like just a little girl. Like it does really, really matter. And so I am a big fan. That can be one tool for sure that you can use in an immediate
mm,
place. And there's also other like physical modalities, shaking, somatic shaking is really helpful. Anything that can release energy.
okay.
Emotions are energy in motion.
Mm,
Emotions, energy in motion. So really, it doesn't even matter what practice or thing you do. It could be shaking your body, it could be screaming, it could be having a tantrum. It literally can be,
yeah.
and not at a partner, not on their face or anything like that. But you definitely can move the energy in a way that is expressing in a healthy way. Right. And
Mm.
the irony is that I'm sure somebody out there is hearing me say somatic shaking. That is a woo woo. And great. You know what? I used to think the same thing too until I broke down. I used to think the same thing too. So
Mm,
sure, you can call me woo woo. I was today I was walking and I was doing some EFT tapping and I was like, man, these people walking by me, pretty sure they think I just have some kind of weird tick. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's fine, but what matters is how you feel.
Mm,
People are going to judge you regardless. That's going to happen. So you may as well just do things that make you feel good.
yeah.
Period.
bringing it back to the feelings there is so important. And I often hear as well that, feeling is healing or healing is
Mm.
feeling. So you speak about keeping it real whilst you heal. What does that exactly mean? I'm sure the audience would love to hear a bit more about that. How does one keep it real?
Yeah, I mean, I also just you just struck an arrow right to my heart. I mean, there's you already struck an arrow in there, but like
Oh,
that,
thank
yes, to you in order to heal, we have to feel. Feeling
yeah,
is healing. We have
yeah.
to in order to heal, we have to feel. Um, and uh, I guess the big thing for me when I say keep it real is truth. That is truth is the most powerful thing that we can do. And to me, truth is love. Now, I'm not saying like go up to a stranger and say, your outfit's ugly. Like that's not
That's
what I
brute honesty,
mean.
right?
Right. Like that's but more so in the fact of, especially when it comes to relationship, well, our first and foremost relationship is with ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of times we are not honest and truthful with ourselves. And just going back to the person that, is working a lot and is a high achiever and runs a team or has a business, a lot of times we're not honest with, I'm hungry, like I need to take a break. I need to
Mm,
stop working right now and have some nourishment.
yeah.
Or that's just like one example of not being honest, not be truthful. And those are little mini breaks in our self-trust. When we literally like that's just like a very common thing that I think people do. I mean, I'll just speak from personal experience too.
Yeah,
Like
I get it.
not really scheduling lunch and
Oh
taking
yeah.
time and taking a break. That's what I used to do in the past, not so much anymore. But in doing that, in denying ourselves truth and listening, we that's a self-sabotage behavior. We break self-trust by not actually listening. And then that, so if we're doing that to ourselves on a regular basis, is that going to show up in a relationship or not? A
Yes.
100%,
Oh,
of course. Right. So then we can't tell our partner certain things. We think, oh well, I don't want to be needy, or I should be able to handle this by myself, or um name whatever else that we may be hesitant to bring up, or I can't bring it up because they'll pull away, or
yeah.
I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to make them mad. So one of the leading cause for divorce
Mm,
is withholding. It's the leading cause
yeah.
is withholding. So to me, that is like a holding of truth. I'm not going to share my truth with you. Then the opposite is fully revealing,
Mm,
full truth. What
yeah.
is truth? The truth right now is I need a snack.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. I need a snack. Yeah.
And that sounds so grounding because once we start to acknowledge our truth and actually live our truth, then that will create more self-trust, I suppose, self-trust in the way that we do, the way that we are able to express ourselves, the way that we handle ourselves as individuals, which is so, so key in order for us to be able to move to, I guess, attachment styles that are secure attachment
Right.
styles in order to
Right.
have that movement. We've spoken about so many things here in this episode. I'm absolutely loved it. I feel so nourished. Thank you, Claire, for the
Mm.
conversation. It's been so, so mind-blowing. So many insights you've dropped here. And would you say that one of the biggest myths that you probably debunk in your work is the fixed? I'm stuck in that one. Or are there any other myths as well that you think that it would be really worth our listeners knowing so that they can just be more aware of what they might be?
Yeah. Gosh, if he wanted to, he would. I think that is a very toxic one.
Mm.
That's like a whole nother conversation. But
I'll
if
bring it
he
back.
wanted to, right. Happy to come back. If he wanted to, he would is so toxic and so narrow and so like self-centered.
Okay.
Because what if he wants to but has a conflict? What if he wants to and has um a different priority in that moment? What if
Mm,
he wants to but is scared? I mean, I think it's really damaging. And part of that is because that speaks to me the mindset of, well, I would do that. That's what I would
uh,
do. And I mean, well, they're not you.
yeah.
You're you,
Mm,
right?
Mm.
And so I think it's a really great way for people to dismiss other people
Okay.
and not be let down. It's a great way of avoiding vulnerability, which is not going to work in a relationship.
Okay. So once you have that, people who are listening, if that is the way that you are thinking, it's an opportunity for you to explore where that is coming from and to really be curious about that mindset. Now, you've also spoken about your relationship with your husband, the runner, the chaser, perhaps. Kind of feels like a twin flame journey to me. But
Mm.
thinking about your relationship with your husband and maybe any relationships you had before that, what have been some of your key learnings from that as well?
Oh man, that's such a big one. Okay, so what feels true in this moment is, gosh, being willing to understand that you're different.
Mm,
I think that's a huge piece of it is that, and that goes back to if he wanted to, he would. It's that people are just different. And I love diversity. I think
yeah.
diversity is so important on so many levels, in a global level, right? On a city level and in an interpersonal level, that we're not actually supposed to be exactly the same.
Mm,
And that diversity, that inclusivity is so important on so many relationship levels that I mean, like, and I guarantee if I could ask the question to your listeners, like, do you want to
mm.
date yourself? Like, the
Oh,
vast majority can be like, hell no. Like, I wouldn't want to date myself. Like, oh my God.
yeah.
Like, right. Like and not because I'm not amazing, but like like my husband is his energy is very different. I'm a Sagittarius, okay? I've got a lot of Sag energy.
Okay.
What is it called? It's a I've got like many personal houses in Sag, and he has
Yeah.
a lot of personal houses in Capricorn. So we've got a lot of stellium.
Okay.
So and so just the nature of how we operate is different. Like what a soul contract that we signed together. Like he just operates differently. And I could have easily have made him wrong, just
Yes.
like he could have easily made me wrong. And what has created such a beautiful relationship for me and him, and I just joke all the time that like I'm a fire sign, so a fire needs a hearth,
Mm,
right? It needs a fireplace, it needs somewhere to sit, and he is my hearth. He is my structure.
mm.
So it's our ability to see our differences and honor them and allow that person to be their truest self, and you can be your truest self. And if you're meant to walk the path together, that's where you'll go.
Oh, amazing. That feels like it moves so naturally into another question I ask my guests is what is your personal definition of love? You've spoken so beautifully about the
Mm.
connection between you and your husband. What's your personal definition of love then on a romantic front?
Oh gosh, I love that. You did mention that you were going to ask that, and
Yeah.
I always love. I'm a Sag, so I'm like whatever comes out of my mouth is going to come out.
Yeah.
So I already mentioned it. To me, it feels like truth. It feels like vulnerability. And to me, all of those are in the effort and the idea of radical acceptance and responsibility.
Yes.
That's love. That is love. Love is I can tell you my realest and most raw truth
Mm.
and be vulnerable enough to humbly open my heart in front of you and also accept any flaws in doing that. That's the acceptance and the radical act of opening in that way.
Oh,
Yeah, that's love.
Claire,
Yeah.
how expansive. Oh,
Mm.
my heart space just opened up when you were talking now. It's just like, oh my gosh, which ether am I in? Oh, that was absolutely beautiful. That was so beautifully expressed. Thank you
Mm.
so much. I really love to ask my guests that question because it's so diverse. We use the word diverse. No, it's so diverse for each guest and so personal. But I know when people listen, they actually think, aha, that feels true to me too.
Mhm.
So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing. Claire, this is going to bring our conversation and our beautiful chat to a close. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and your energy today. It's been absolutely wonderful. I do have a parting tradition on my show whereby I ask my very special guests to leave our listeners with one key takeaway to help them along their journey of love, well-being, and relationships. And I'd love for you to share that with us.
Mm, I'm feeling into that you're you are not your thoughts.
Mm.
You are not your thoughts. I know overthinking is definitely like a huge part of my body of work with how I help clients. And I think it's really important to know that you are not your thoughts. And they're interesting and they're colorful and they may not be reality. That's also true too. So just remember that you're not your thoughts and that your feelings, while valid, are not may not be facts.
Mm. Okay. Wow. That's going to take really some exploration for our guests to understand that, and so empowering to know that. Claire, where are you hanging out? Where can the audience reach out to you? And have you got any workshops, programs that our listeners would be keen to hear about?
Oh, I love that question. So you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Be That Healing Girl. Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at Be That Healing Girl on any podcast platform. And if you are so inclined, I have a whole community. It's at the healing, let me say that again, www.healinggirlgang.com.
Brilliant. And I'm going to drop all of your information into the show notes so it's easily accessible. And I would invite you and encourage people who are listening to check out Claire's phenomenal work. It really is empowering. Once again, thank you so much for the conversation today. I've loved every single minute of it. And for everybody who has listened to this really nourishing, empowering conversation between myself and Claire, I want to thank you for your time, for your attention, and for your energy. And until the next episode, take great care of yourselves and others too.